The morning at Jefferson High School began like any other ordinary day. Students filled the hallways, lockers slammed, and teachers hurried toward classrooms carrying stacks of papers. Among the crowd was 16-year-old Marcus Hill, a quiet honor student known for his sharp mind and calm personality. Marcus wasn't the type to cause trouble. He kept to himself, focused on his studies, and dreamed of becoming a lawyer one day. But on this particular morning, something unusual was about to happen. Within minutes, the peaceful atmosphere of the school would be shattered, and Marcus's life would change in a way no one expected. Marcus had just finished placing books in his locker when two uniformed police officers walked into the hallway. Their heavy boots echoed against the tile floor, immediately drawing attention from nearby students. Whispers spread quickly as everyone wondered why the police were inside the school. Normally, officers only appeared during emergencies or safety drills. The officers scanned the hallway with stern expressions until their eyes locked onto Marcus. Without greeting or explanation, they began walking directly toward him. Marcus noticed the tension instantly, confusion filling his mind. He had never even spoken to a police officer before, let alone expected one to approach him at school. "Marcus Hill?" one officer asked sharply. Marcus nodded slowly, unsure of what was happening. Before he could ask any questions, the officer grabbed his arm firmly. Students nearby gasped as the sudden confrontation unfolded. Marcus tried to stay calm, asking politely what the problem was. Instead of answering, the second officer pulled his wrists behind his back. The hallway grew silent, except for the murmurs of shocked students watching the scene. Marcus felt his heart racing. He had done nothing wrong, yet here he was being treated like a criminal in front of his classmates. A teacher rushed over, concerned about the commotion. "Officers, what's going on?" she asked nervously. The officer barely looked at her before responding that Marcus was suspected in an investigation. The explanation was vague and offered no real detail. Marcus tried to explain that there must be a mistake, but the officers ignored him completely. Students began recording the moment on their phones as the officers started escorting Marcus down the hallway. The humiliation burned deep. His classmates stared, whispering and pointing as if he had suddenly become someone dangerous. As they reached the front office, the school principal appeared, clearly startled by the situation. "What is the meaning of this?" she asked firmly. The officers repeated the same vague statement about an investigation. Marcus insisted he had nothing to do with any crime. His voice trembled slightly but remained respectful. The principal looked uneasy, realizing something didn't feel right. However, the authority of the officers made it difficult for her to challenge them. Within moments, they continued dragging Marcus toward the school entrance while confused staff members looked on helplessly. Outside the building, a patrol car waited with its lights flashing silently. Students gathered near the windows, watching the scene unfold. Marcus felt the cold metal handcuffs around his wrists. The situation felt surreal. Only minutes earlier, he had been thinking about a math test in third period. Now he was being forced toward a police car like a suspect. "Please, can you at least tell me what I did?" Marcus asked again. The officer simply replied, "You'll find out soon enough." Inside the school, rumors spread like wildfire. Some students believed Marcus must have committed a serious crime, while others defended him, saying he was one of the most respectful students in the entire school. Teachers whispered among themselves in the faculty room, questioning why the officers had used such force. Meanwhile, Marcus sat silently in the back of the patrol car, staring through the window at the school he had always considered a safe place. Back in the principal's office, administrators began reviewing security footage to understand what had happened. Nothing about Marcus's behavior suggested wrongdoing. He had simply been standing at his locker before the officers approached. The principal grew increasingly uncomfortable. Something about the arrest seemed rushed and poorly explained. She decided to call Marcus's emergency contact listed in the school records. That contact happened to be his father. Miles away in a large courthouse downtown, Judge Daniel Hill sat behind his desk reviewing case files. Known throughout the federal district for his calm authority and commitment to justice, Judge Hill had built a reputation as someone who believed deeply in fairness and the rule of law. His phone vibrated quietly on the desk. When he saw the school's number on the screen, he answered immediately. The principal explained what had happened in a careful but worried tone. As she described how officers had taken Marcus away without clear explanation, Judge Hill's expression slowly hardened. He listened quietly, asking precise questions. When the call ended, the courtroom felt suddenly colder. The judge stood up, removed his robe, and reached for his coat. Something was very wrong, and he intended to find out exactly what it was. Judge Daniel Hill walked quickly through the courthouse hallway, his mind racing. His son Marcus had never been in trouble before, not even a detention at school. Something about the situation felt deeply wrong. As a federal judge, he understood how the justice system should work. Arrests required evidence, procedure, and clear explanation. What the principal described sounded careless and reckless. Judge Hill called his assistant and canceled the rest of his hearings for the day. Then he contacted a colleague at the district office to ask if any official investigation involved his son. The answer came quickly. There was none. Meanwhile, Marcus sat silently inside the police station interview room. The bright fluorescent lights above him buzzed faintly. His hands rested on the cold metal table, still trembling slightly from the shock of the arrest. Across from him, two officers reviewed papers and whispered quietly to each other. Marcus tried to stay calm, remembering the advice his father had always given him. Stay respectful, stay quiet, and ask for a lawyer. When the officers finally looked up, Marcus spoke softly. "I would like to call my father." The officers exchanged glances before one of them shrugged and allowed it. Marcus dialed the number he knew by heart. When his father answered, Marcus felt a wave of relief. His voice shook slightly as he explained where he was. Judge Hill listened carefully, asking only a few calm questions. When Marcus finished, the judge's voice remained steady but firm. "Marcus, stay calm. Do not answer any more questions until I arrive." Marcus nodded, even though his father could not see him. "Yes, Dad," he replied quietly. The call ended, leaving the officers in the room curious about who Marcus's father might be. At the station front desk, the atmosphere was calm as officers worked on routine paperwork. That calm quickly changed when a tall man in a dark coat walked through the doors with quiet authority. Judge Hill approached the desk with composed confidence. "I'm here regarding Marcus Hill," he said. The desk officer looked up and froze when he recognized the name. Judge Daniel Hill was well known throughout the legal community. The officer quickly stood up, suddenly aware that something serious might be unfolding. Within minutes, the officers who had arrested Marcus were called to the front office. When they saw Judge Hill standing there, their confident expressions began to fade. The judge introduced himself calmly. "I'm Marcus Hill's father," he said. His voice carried a quiet strength that immediately filled the room with tension. "I would like to know why my son was removed from school, handcuffed, and brought here without explanation." One of the officers cleared his throat awkwardly. He explained that Marcus matched the description of a suspect involved in a nearby theft investigation. However, the explanation sounded weak even to the other officers listening nearby. Judge Hill asked for the exact description that supposedly matched Marcus. When the officer read it aloud, several details were clearly different. The suspect was described as taller, older, and wearing completely different clothing. Judge Hill remained calm, but his eyes sharpened. "So, you arrested my son in front of his school based on a vague description that does not match him?" he asked. The officers hesitated, realizing the mistake was becoming painfully obvious. Other officers in the station quietly watched the conversation unfold, sensing that a serious error had been made. Marcus was soon brought into the office. When he saw his father standing there, relief washed over him. Judge Hill placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Are you all right?" he asked gently. Marcus nodded, though the embarrassment of the situation still lingered. Students had watched him being dragged out of school like a criminal. That humiliation would not disappear easily. Judge Hill turned back to the officers. "My son will be leaving now," he said firmly. No one argued. The handcuffs were removed immediately. Marcus rubbed his wrists as the cold pressure finally disappeared. The room remained silent except for the sound of paperwork being shuffled nervously. Before leaving, Judge Hill asked for the full report of the incident. His tone remained controlled but serious. The supervising officer realized the situation could lead to an internal investigation. Improper arrests, especially involving minors, were taken very seriously. As Marcus and his father walked toward the exit, several officers looked down, clearly uncomfortable with what had happened. Judge Hill believed in fairness, but he also believed accountability mattered. What happened to Marcus should never happen to any student without clear reason. Outside the station, the afternoon sun felt warm after the tense atmosphere inside. Marcus took a deep breath of fresh air. Judge Hill looked at him carefully. "I'm proud of you for staying calm," he said. Marcus nodded quietly. Meanwhile, news about the arrest had already begun spreading at Jefferson High School. Students who recorded the moment posted clips online. Within hours, thousands of people had seen the video showing Marcus being dragged down the hallway. The school administration quickly realized the situation could become a public issue. Parents began calling the office asking what had happened. Teachers defended Marcus, describing him as one of the most respectful students in the school. Later that evening, Judge Hill carefully reviewed the police report. Several inconsistencies appeared immediately. Important procedures had been ignored, and the officers had acted without verifying key details. The next day, the police department opened an internal investigation into the arrest. Supervisors wanted to understand how such a mistake could occur. Marcus returned to school 2 days later. As he walked through the hallway, students watched quietly. Many offered supportive smiles. His closest friends greeted him warmly, relieved he was back. Teachers also welcomed him with encouragement. They knew the situation had been unfair and humiliating for him. Several reminded Marcus that his future remained bright. Meanwhile, the police department publicly acknowledged the mistake. The official statement explained that Marcus had been wrongly identified during the investigation. For Marcus, the experience was painful, but also eye-opening. He saw firsthand how easily misunderstandings could occur in the justice system.